The reflection. There's a house on Bridle Lane. At least, that's what I used to tell myself. It wasn't the kind of house you'd notice at first. If you were looking for it, you'd find it. And if you weren't, you'd simply never see it. That's how it works, right? Some things, some places, wait for you to stumble upon them. And when you do, they change everything. The first time I walked through its front door, I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew I needed to be there. I had been feeling off, you could say, for months, maybe longer. My thoughts weren't my own. Voices kept slipping in, whispers that crept in the corners of my mind, the kind that didn't belong to anyone but me, but somehow still felt alien. That house, this house, was supposed to give me the answers I thought I needed. Bridle Lane is quiet, almost too quiet, like the world forgot it was even there. The house, weathered with age, was perched at the end of the street, almost hidden behind a wild tangle of vines and overgrown hedges. Its windows were large and oppressive, staring out at the street like hollow eyes, while the door was worn and cracked, as if it had been waiting for someone. I wasn't the first person to stand in that doorway. I wasn't the first to feel the hum in the air that seemed to vibrate under my skin, but I felt as if I was the one it had been waiting for. I stepped inside. The air inside was heavy, thick, with dust, and it seemed to hold secrets I wasn't ready to face. But there it was, standing in the center of the entryway, the mirror, massive, with a frame that curled and twisted like a dark vine. It stood taller than me, as though daring me to look into it. My feet carried me toward it, drawn like an insect to a flame. And that's when I saw it. At first, it was subtle. My reflection stared back at me, as any reflection should. But there was something about the eyes. They weren't right. Too wide, too knowing, like they could see everything I tried to hide. For a second, I thought it was just the dim lighting or my mind playing tricks, but when I blinked, the reflection smiled. I froze. It was me, but it wasn't. The eyes in the mirror, the ones that mirrored my own, held a cruel gleam, a mocking twist, and that smile. It wasn't one I'd ever made. It was wide, stretching too far, revealing teeth that glinted unnaturally, and then it spoke. "Why do you run from me?" The voice was faint, but it filled my head. It felt like it came from inside me, but at the same time, it felt entirely separate. My heart raced, but I couldn't look away. I knew that voice. I had heard it before, in the dark corners of my mind, when I lay awake in the dead of night, the whispers clawing at me, asking me questions I didn't want to answer. I took a shaky step back. The reflection didn't follow. It remained where it was, still and smiling. "Why do you run from me?" it repeated, this time louder, with an edge of impatience. I swallowed hard. My voice came out in a strained whisper. Who are you?" The reflection's smile deepened, its eyes gleaming with something dark. "I'm you. But you already know that, don't you? You've always known." The words hit me like a punch. No, it couldn't be. I wasn't like that. I wasn't broken. But the longer I stared, the more I realized. It was me. I had been fighting this part of myself for years, pretending it didn't exist. The darkness, the fear, the voice in the back of my mind that told me I wasn't enough, that I never would be. But now, here it was, standing right in front of me, and I couldn't escape it. "No," I whispered, a pit of ice forming in my stomach. "This isn't real." But the reflection didn't let up. It leaned forward, its smile now a cruel grin. "It's real. You've always known it's real. You're just too afraid to admit it." I backed up, almost tripping over my own feet, but the reflection didn't move. It simply tilted its head, like it was watching me with amusement. The mind is a funny thing," it said, its voice smooth and cold. "It lets you live in denial. It lets you think you're separate from me, but I've always been with you, lurking just beneath the surface. And now, we're finally meeting face to face." I could feel the walls of the house pressing in around me, suffocating me. The whispers grew louder, the air heavier. It was as if the house itself was alive, feeding off the chaos in my mind. The mirror wasn't just showing me a reflection, it was pulling me in, inviting me to confront the truth. "What do you want from me?" I croaked, my voice barely audible. The reflection's eyes flickered with something. Regret? No, it was something darker. "I want you to see. You've spent so long running from me, pretending I don't exist, but I've always been here. I've always been part of you." I reached for the door, but my feet wouldn't move. The reflection's presence was suffocating. I could hear it, feel it in my bones. It was everywhere. "No," I whispered, my voice barely a breath. "This can't be happening." But it was happening. It was real. The truth was standing right in front of me, grinning, waiting for me to accept it. And then, just as I thought I might collapse under the weight of it all, the reflection spoke once more. Its voice echoed in my skull, filling every inch of me. "You've been running from yourself your whole life, haven't you? It's too late now. We're one and the same." And in that moment, everything fell away. I felt myself slip. The house, the mirror, my reflection, they all became a blur, and all that was left was me. When I woke up, I was still standing before the mirror, but I wasn't the same. I didn't need to look to know the truth. I had known it all along. There was no running from myself. I had been searching for answers outside, for something to fix me, to make me whole again. But the truth was simple. The truth was that I was already broken, and I had always been this way.